good group tonight. And like I said, you're in for a treat with Chris Hammond. For those that haven't been on one of these Real Talks before, I'm actually in Mexico. I live in San Diego. I still practice 2 to 3 days a week. And ever since COVID hit, I sneak across the border about 40 miles south of San Diego. And I spend 4 to 5 days down here. So the picture behind me is Popotla, for those that are familiar with the Rosarito or Ensenada. Puerto Nuevo's down here. That picture is not too far from Puerto Nuevo. And so it's kind of nice as a getaway, because when we couldn't travel and we couldn't do anything, I was able to still take my dog for walks on the beach and swim and work out a little bit. So Chris is in Utah, as in Jeremy, is Jeremy in Kent from Utah Valley Dental Lab, and I'm in Mexico. So I'll be back up, Chris, in Utah Christmas week. So pray for snow for me, because I'm a boarder, so I'll need to do it as much as I can. But anyway, let's not do from telling the audience about the things you're doing that are so special. But I do want to share your story, because I think it's awe-inspiring. In August of this year, Chris was fishing up in Alaska, and I'll let you tell more of the details because I don't know them all. And he had a fishing accident and actually lost vision in his right eye. And that's traumatic. Most of you know that 21 years ago, this last month, I lost my right thumb, and I'm right-handed. And, when someone tells you you can't practice anymore, you think you can't practice anymore. That's life-changing mentally and emotionally and physically. And so, Chris, I know you weren't sure if you were going to be able to practice or what was going to happen.
Sure, yeah.
And now you're back practicing. You told me you prepped 40 units this week, which 40 units this week. So you're busy. And I think it'd be cool, because I know you're so passionate about what you do and how you developed a team. And I will tell you, Chris has one of the most beautiful offices in Provo, Utah that I've ever visited. And I've visited a lot of dental offices. It's beautiful, and your team is special. He has a saying that, work in your practice 80% of the time, and 20% of the time work on your practice, and spends a lot of time, developing a team so they can offer this patient-centered, care that he does, which is very special. So Chris, if you don't mind sharing, I just think it's humanizes us a little bit when, we have trials and tribulations like other people.
Yeah, I
share with us your story.
What's that?
Share with us the story in Alaska.
Yeah, so just actually it backs up to June, believe it or not. In June, I was in Lake Powell, David. I don't know if you remember this, and surfing behind my boat, and I broke my finger.
Oh yeah, you showed me.
I went to this has just been a crazy year, and I went to a hand specialist, and he said, "Oh yeah, I can fix that. You'd need to only be out of the office for 8 weeks." And I said, "No, I'm fine." And so I taped it up with a popsicle stick, and I went back to work. And now it healed a little weird on its own, but I'm glad I didn't take time off, because I had to take time off after I injured my eye just 2 months later. So while my Lake Powell trip isn't as bad as yours, my crazy year, at least with injuries, started in Lake Powell in June. But on August 22nd, I was fishing in Alaska, and I was probably 3 hours away from the nearest person, except for the 4 of us that were on this boat. And one of the guys we were fishing with an ocean hook, and Jeremy, you know how big those are. And if you've been to Alaska, you know how big those halibut and salmon hooks can be. Somebody actually popped a hook out of the water, and it buried itself in my right eye. So it didn't stick in my lid. It wasn't one of those stories you hear about people getting snagged in the face. I actually had this huge hook bury in the side of my eyeball and then come out the front of my iris, and it stayed there. So we were so far away from a hospital. I knew it would be at least 4 or 5 hours before I would get to help. So I talked my 19-year-old son into crimping the barb down and backing the hook out. And then we packed my eye with gauze and everything, and we hightailed it back to the fishing lodge, and eventually on an airplane. And then the crazy part about the story is I got to Juneau, and I hope I'm not skipping over any details, I probably am, but we got to Juneau and showed up at the hospital, and they did not have an ophthalmologist in the city of Juneau. not one. The one guy
Oh,
they
wow.
had had retired. So it was 6 o'clock at night, and I went to a motel, got a room, and the hospital wanted to ship me to Anchorage the next morning, and I just said no, I'll just go to Salt Lake, and I jumped on the Delta flight and flew to Salt Lake on Sunday, and I was in the operating room by 3:30 on Sunday.
Wow.
It was crazy. So you're right. I did not think I would practice again. I emailed my team in Provo a picture of my eye, and I said I need to take Monday off, and so that's kind of how it all started. But 2 months later, I was, and thanks to an awesome team and my awesome partner, Dr. Harris, 2 months later, I was back in work trying to figure out hand-eye coordination. I figured that it wasn't very fun to stay at home all the time, and I wanted to get back to work. I love dentistry, so I think you told me, David, I asked you how long it took for you to get back after your thumb injury, and you said 3 months, and so I vowed to beat your recovery time, and I went back after 2 months.
Yes, you did.
But
That's an awesome story. Yeah, I didn't go back. It's about 2 months, but I did a live video of seating 10 veneers about 18 days later.
wow.
And what's weird is as we like a bend a brush, we hold, I think most of us do it, between the thumb and the forefinger, and that's how you would, paint or you put on bonding material or whatever. And I couldn't because it was so sore and healing. So I had to hold this bend a brush or this micro brush between my long finger and my index finger. And the guy who shot the video had shot dental videos before, and we took a break, and he says, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because he couldn't see I didn't have a thumb because I had gloves on. And he says, that's the weirdest thing. I've never seen a dentist hold stuff between these two fingers. And I said, yeah, well, watch this. And pull off my glove, and he says, oh, I get it. Right. So,
Oh, wow.
but I'm glad you're back and you're doing well and you look good.
Yeah, I'm back. The thing I learned is when this first happened, I started complaining about my trials and everything. And I figured out that almost everybody I talked to also had a trial. And so I quit complaining about it. And I just decided that you might as well go back and play the hand you're dealt. So that's where I'm at. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, I am too. And I appreciate you doing this tonight. All right.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah, I am ready for you.
So I actually threw in a few Alaska pictures, and I imagine in a group this size, a bunch of you have been to Alaska before. And I still think that is one of the most magical places, if not the most magical place in the world. And Jeremy, you'd have to agree with me. I know you've been not far from this place. This is about an hour flight out of Juneau. And I took my family, the four of us went. There's my wife, Allie. We caught just hundreds of pounds of fish. And I still think, despite what happened to me, I still think this is one of the, if not the best vacation I've ever been on. And I hope to go back. There's my son, Austin. This is not far, actually not long from when my accident happened. And there's the four of us. So there's my eye that night. I got back to the hotel. I thought, I wish I would have taken a picture of this with a hook in it, but that hook buried in the bridge of my nose, deflected off my nose, went through the side of my eyeball and out my iris and pupil out the front, and then out the front of my eyelid. So apparently Zach, my son, told me that he just saw the tip of the hook sticking out, and I talked him into getting rid of it. So we cut the barb and crimped it and backed it out. And I was later told that it probably saved, even though you're not supposed to do that, the time involved, I probably spared more significant damage by getting a hook out of my eye that had previously been in about 50 salmon in the last 60 minutes. So that's where I'm at. And now I am glad to be past that part of my life. So I figured it'd be helpful to talk about me a little bit, just so you know where I come from and what my experience is and what I do every day, and a little bit about my dental history. But I went to BYU. I'm a Utah guy. I was born and raised here. I went to Oregon. I know I've talked to a couple of my friends that are from my same graduating class, and later on that shared Oregon Health Sciences University with me. I love that school. I met David actually in 1996 at a meeting in San Diego at a Crown Council, 97, sorry, at a meeting at Crown Council. And then I started taking his continuing education courses way back in 1998. And you'll learn later as I talk a little bit about my journey through dentistry that I've kind of latched on to David and a few other people in dentistry, a few other giants, and figured out that that is the best path to find your way and to find your dream, is to latch on to a few people and copy what they do. And I started this journey with Dr. Hornbrook in 1998, and I took all of his courses. I finished his programs in 2002, and then he actually hired me on as one of his mentors in his functional aesthetic courses. And I've been working with him since then. It's been awesome. Off and on, we kind of took a pause there between 2008 and probably 2013. And it's been great. And I now work with both Dr. Hornbrook and Dr. Montgomery. I know you guys heard from Dr. Montgomery last week, and he's also an amazing mentor of mine. I think someone that you should listen to. So when David first asked me to do a presentation similar to this, it was for his Young Dentist program. And by the way, if you are a dentist and you're listening to me and you've been out from 1 to 5 years, you should ask, or you can email me. I'll give you my email address in a minute, or you can talk to Utah Valley Dental Lab and find out about their Young Dentist program. But for dentists that have been out of dental school between 1 to 5 years, he offers this amazing program, a mentoring program on aesthetics. And I can get David to talk a little bit more about it later. But he asked me to talk to these young dentists, and I didn't really know what he wanted me to talk about. And he just said to me, he said, go tell them what you do in your practice every day, because I think there's a lot of things, a lot of mistakes you've made and a lot of things you've done that they can benefit from. And so I kind of built this lecture, this hour or an hour and a half of material around that same objective. And even though a lot of us have been out of school for many years, probably anywhere from our first year out to 20, 25, or 30 years like me, I'm thinking that there's a lot of material here tonight that can benefit you and kind of help you realize your dream and help you practice dentistry the way that you want to. But I think that's all of our goal, is to kind of live the dream and practice in a way that will help us be happy.
Chris,
So, go ahead.
Chris, let me interrupt you here. So I might interrupt you occasionally when people ask.
And I want you to.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure the panelists know that they can get on the chat, and Chris won't be able to see the question, but I will. So if there's any questions you might have, or anything you want to add or say, feel free to type that in the chat, and then I'll bring it up to Chris, and so we can make this as live as possible in this environment.
Yeah, I'm happy. I don't mind being interrupted at any time. So originally, I used to teach dental photography for David's programs. He would bring me in to teach a 2-day course on digital photography, and I did that for a number of years. And so at first, when I built this lecture, I thought, oh, I'll just go talk about photography, and it kind of evolved into being the 5 things that I would tell another dentist to do that would help bring more fulfillment in their practice and help them build kind of the practice of their dreams. And I am always on that journey, I feel like, always making mistakes and always trying to change things the way I do it, learning from the past and learning from others. And I kind of built this program on 5 things. So I love to find mentors that I can copy what they've done and just follow them, both in education and in their lives. I love digital photography. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. I love taking time in my life to actually implement new ideas, both in my life and in my practice. David talked about my 80-20 rule, and I have made it a habit in my life. I received kind of advice from someone a long time ago to work 80% of the time in my practice and 20% of the time on my practice. And I've built my life and my habits around that so that I can implement new ideas and always be adding things to my practice, because one of the things that I was finding early on is that I was almost too busy to try anything new. And so now I'm just committed to spending 20% of my time building and working without seeing patients. And I even do that with my team. In my office, we spend 20% of our time with no patients trying to develop our business and become the practice that we want to. I'll talk a little bit more about playing to win, and I'll talk a little bit more about my passion of treating my employees and my team members like owners of my business. So this first part, finding a mentor. I love CE. I've taken thousands and thousands of hours of continuing education, but I've also been around people that have taken education courses, not unlike really what you guys have had in the past, last week from Dr. Hornbrook, or a few weeks ago from Dr. Hornbrook and Kent, and from Dr. Montgomery. And then they learn all that stuff, and we've all heard the same ideas, but then they go on to never really change and never really do anything different. So I have realized that one of the things that I would recommend and that I've done that's been huge for me is I've tried not to follow a million different directions in education. I've tried to find a mentor, or in my case, I'll tell you who my 5 mentors are, and follow them and kind of latch on to that philosophy of care, philosophy of practice, philosophy of life, rather than it being this giant potpourri of so many different ideas that I actually never get anything implemented. So that's been my recommendation to people. As I talk to these young dentists in the Young Dentist program and giving them advice, I tell them, find a philosophy, stick to that, build your CE and your continuing education around that, and then be sure you implement those ideas into your practice so that it's worthwhile for you. So my mentors, my dad, who I practiced with for 8 years, he's always been my mentor since early in life, of course, was an amazing dentist and kind of a legend in Utah. I have to mention Dr. Hornbrook, and he's a guy that I've kind of latched onto and followed in my lifetime and tried to copy his genius instead of just coming up with ideas on my own. Steve Anderson and the whole TOPS program, I love those guys. His brother Greg, who developed Crown Council, those guys have been big influencers for me. And then I have to mention Tommy Neighbors, who's developed the No More Hygiene program, which has also been one of the most important things I've ever done in my practice, is to implement his philosophy about periodontal disease. So just to give him a quick plug, you should go, and if you just want to Google No More Hygiene, you'll find his programs on there too. It's also huge and awesome for those of you that want to learn more about a simple, effective way for periodontal care. So let's talk about photography. This is going to be really brief, but I also promise to give all of my information to Dental Intel so you can upload all of the information I'm going to give you really quick. I know some of you will write stuff down, but I've been such a big proponent of learning photography skills for a very long time. And as soon as I latched on and learned to David's challenge for me to teach a digital photography program, I quickly realized that taking quality photographs of my own rather than using stock images of somebody else's is one of the single most important things that I've ever done in my practice as far as the marketing strategy goes, and things that I do. To be able to show my own work in all areas of my practice, in my marketing, on Instagram, and in my office on the walls and everything, and to have patients know that that's my own work has been huge and giant. So rather than show patients photos like this, which we all have taken before, and some of us don't know how to get out of this mode, I firmly believe that taking good quality photographs is probably a skill almost on par with learning good quality dentistry. And I think, David, you'd agree with that, right? In fact, I think you taught me most of my photography skills actually in camera settings.
Well, I'm a firm believer in, I think it sends a message. So, you mentioned sending it to a laboratory. I think it sends a message to your patients that if it's good photography, that's in focus, that doesn't look like it's a Polaroid or an iPhone, it's sending your message to your patients that you're unwilling to compromise. And then to the laboratory, it's the same thing. And Kent, I think you could agree with me on this. If you send excellent photos with your cases to the dental lab, basically you're telling the ceramist, listen, I'm not willing to compromise. You can't either. And ceramists don't like to admit it, but they'll say, yeah, the photos were bad, impressions were bad, no face bow, the records weren't that great. Do I really have to try as hard as if I had that information? So you're absolutely right.
And I'm a big fan of Canon cameras. I'm a big proponent of using a full digital SLR camera. I know there's lots of systems out there. The upside to a camera like this is they're very effective and they take amazing photographs. The downside is they're hard to learn, to figure out the settings and what's the f-stop and what's the shutter speed, what's the flash setting. So one thing that I'm going to do, and David, you mentioned that I could send items to Stacy so she could upload those or email those out, is I'm going to send everyone that's on the call tonight my camera settings for my Canon camera. And hopefully you guys can take that information. It basically is all 10 of my settings and the way that I program my camera that you can use to take quality photographs. And then it's a good start for you, at least. Of course, it doesn't really give you instant experience with digital photography, but sometimes getting just basic settings is a great place for you to start. I'll also send you my cheat sheet and the photographs that I take every day in my office and how I take them, and then sample photographs of what I take in my office and the settings that goes along with those. So I will send those. Here's my email as a backup, but I think the easiest way to do it is I'll work with Dental Intel to send out my little cheat sheet that I use for settings and the views that I take all the time that hopefully is helpful for anyone that's trying to learn digital photography, which, like I said, I think it's one of the most important things that you could ever do, whether you're an aesthetic dentist or a general dentist or an orthodontist or whatever, to grow your practices, to take quality photographs yourself. I think it reflects your work.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, so let me just add to that. So yeah, they can either email you, as you mentioned. We're going to set up a link at the end of this webinar where you can get these different forms, because I know there's other things that you're giving to your patients that you use with your team that a lot of the doctors listening would like copies of. There'll be a link at the end, and also at the end we'll have a link to for the CE credits as well. So you know, hold on.
So I threw in a picture of my studio. I take my own studio photographs in my office now. So, and this was very easy to learn. In fact, any local Photoshop, or actually probably YouTube, can teach you how to do this. And I know some of you are already doing it, but I quickly learned that I can take as good or better studio photographs in my own office. This actually, around the corner of this photograph is my pano machine. So this actually is next to my pano machine. I quickly learned that I can take photographs of a high enough quality that can be used in my own marketing materials, whether it's online or in print or in my office, that benefit me and are as good as anybody else could do for me. So, and it's free. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay anything for it. And we get to have fun doing it too. And even just taking photographs of your cases and of your patients is in itself a really good marketing opportunity. So these are all photographs that I took real quickly in my office with my patients that are there. It took me just a couple of minutes. And I teach my team to do this. And I've gone on now to use a lot of these photographs. Those of you that have been in my office, these are on the wall of my office. I'll show you in a minute. I've gone on to use these in marketing and online and Instagram, on my chapstick, on my water bottle, just on the wall. This is the wall of my consultation room. And just looking down the hall of my office with my operatories there on the right. David talked a little bit about my office. And so everything in my office is my own work. And like I said, and I don't want to be too redundant, but I think this is one of the most important things I have ever done, is learned how to take quality photographs and then use my own photography in everything that I do rather than other stock images. So on my website also, you can go and see those at hammondsmile.com is my website. You can see the photographs that we've taken and the videos that we've shot that we've just done ourselves, which has been huge for me. Some of these models are cheap. This is my wife, Allie. She's like was a free model, and I got to use her as much as I wanted. And I've gone actually to use her on a lot of my marketing stuff because I like the result and I like the pictures that we took. So real quick, I use her on my chapstick labels. I thought I had a water ball label here, but I don't anymore. So also on Instagram. So here's another tip for photography. Once you learn how to take photographs, I think moving on to showcase photos of you in your life and also what you do every day is huge. I have used Instagram in my practice for about a year now, and I think that has been a huge game changer for me, and many of you would agree. I now no longer will use before and after books in my office. I don't even get them out of the drawer anymore. With patients and when I'm showing before and afters, I only use Instagram, and I will have patients, as we're doing a consultation in my office, bring up my Instagram page on their phone, or we'll do it on an iPad if they don't have their phone with them. And we will show before and after pictures on Instagram now. And also at the same time, we're sure that they quickly follow us. So I'll even touch follow on their phone myself to be sure that I get another follower right then. And whether or not they accept treatment at that time, they're now going to be fed my content forever now as we post things and post before and after pictures. But I now use my Instagram page as my before and after book, even live in the office. We try and get patients electronically just to bring it up so we can talk about the cases that we've done. I can find a case that's similar to theirs. We can talk about it, and that's kind of how we've done it. And I would highly recommend that. If you're not already heavily in social media, I think that that has been a huge game changer for me. And we also throw just regular pictures of me so patients get to know me as a person also. But there's just an example. You can go to my Instagram page sometime. Don't do it now because I want to keep you on this, but Hammond Smile, at Hammond Smile is my handle, and you can go to my profile anytime. That's photography. Just real quick about me, because I think that's important for you to know that I'm really not unlike many of you on our journey to becoming the dentist that we want to be. My practice is now 2 dentists. I have a partner, Dr. Alex Harris, who is amazing. In fact, when I took time off work, forced time off work on August 22nd with my eye injury, I stepped out of my practice for 2 full months, and he ran the show. He'd been out of dental school for a year, and he ran the show for me, or less. I need to add up the months there. He ran the show for me for 2 months incredibly and basically saved my business. And when I came back on October 1st to practice again, he still ran the show while I developed hand-eye coordination again. And now he and I are we have our foot on the gas and we're trying to catch up, and he's been amazing. We have 9 team members between the 2 of us, 3 hygienists, 3 clinical assistants, and 3 business team members, probably not unlike a lot of you guys and your own practices. There's Dr. Harris and I. He's the younger version of me. There's my practice building. We're on the 2nd floor there in Utah. There's my reception room. We love our office. We love making it a comfortable place and making it as nice as possible. I spend more time in my office really during the week than I do at home almost. And so we want it to be an environment where we want to be and our patients want to be. I've been in general practice for 24 years.
Chris, can I interrupt you there?
Yeah, please do.
Because so Chris's dental assistant, I do this young dentist program in Utah. Chris's dental assistant, Demery,
yeah,
me in this course for the last 5 years. And she mentioned something very interesting. I'd like for you to talk about this because I just went to get my physical, my physician. I'm looking around as I'm sitting there giving blood. And, the walls are chipped, the floor is a gouge out of it. And when I was talking to Demery, she was saying, yeah, like once a month, you guys get around, you get paintbrushes and you try to renew, you chips and you clean things, make it look like brand new.
Yeah, I am going to talk about that. And we don't paint once a month, but I do have 2 dedicated days a year where that's all we do is we go through my office and we make it brand new again. We clean everything, we paint any dings on the wall, and we just basically want to reset my office to that feeling of when we walked in the office back in 2009 and it was brand new and we really were excited to work there. So we try and recreate that same feeling twice a year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we've developed a cosmetic practice within our practice. About 50% of my practice is strictly cosmetics, everything that we do. I have a general practice too. About half of what we do, Dr. Harris and I, is general dentistry. And thanks to Tommy Neighbors, we have a periodontal program within our practice, which I think has been a game changer for me, a simple way to treat periodontal disease that patients will actually buy into. A little bit about my week, and all this will make sense to all of you and why I want to tell you about this here as I get into my content, but I focus all of my patient care on 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. I work on patients in my practice 142 days a year, or 11 to 12 days a month. I call those months periods, and I hope I get a chance to talk a little bit about that. And then 1 to 2 full days a month I spend working on my practice with no patients, just in development with my list of ideas or the list of things I learned at Chicago Midwinter or at the ADA meeting or the AACD or Crown Council. I spend 2 full days a month trying to implement those ideas and build my practice. And it's just been my commitment. At first, I was scared to do that, but I'm going to show you in a minute why I could not build a practice that I wanted without those days. So another pearl are my flex days. So my other 2 Thursdays for me. So imagine there are 4 Thursdays in the month. I do 2 of those in working on my practice. I do 2 more of those Thursdays. I call those flex days. This has really saved my sanity. And those flex days are patient days, but I'm the only one that can schedule patients on those days. My team cannot schedule any appointments. In fact, I could decide not to work. That's why I call them flexible or flex days. But I've got those 2 days reserved. So even if I get booked out 3 months, which currently that's where I am, I'm booked out two months. I always know that I have 2 empty days ahead of me that I could always use for whatever purposes I deem appropriate. So whether it's a large case, a sedation case, a smile, a patient that's in need of sedation, needs to get work done quickly, that's in an immediate need, and those are really the days that I decide what I want to do with them. It might be that I go golfing or go skiing, but they're there for me, and that's something, if you can't do it now in your practice, I would write that idea down. I actually picked that up from a friend a while ago, and I thought, I wonder if that would work. And I started doing one of those days, and then I quickly add another one because I think they have brought me complete sanity and peace in my schedule. Mostly because a lot of us get panicked when we're booked out a long ways, but imagine the peace of mind of knowing that you always have 2 days to use if you want. And if you don't want, go surfing or go skiing or go spend time with your family. Another thing about me is I've operated without a front desk. I have no front desk in my office. That's why I didn't show you a picture of my front desk. I don't have one. I'm unlike really the Apple Store, which is a very common retail environment that has no front desk. So imagine when you walk into the Apple Store and you're greeted by an Apple employee in a pink shirt or a red shirt or whatever they're wearing. We do the same thing in my office. You're greeted personally by one of my team members, and they will be your primary contact during the entire time that you're with me. So David talked about Demery, and she's my clinical assistant. When I have a patient coming, Demery greets those people at the door, walks them back to the treatment room, stays with them, is the assistant, does all the follow-up work, answers questions about insurance, takes payment, schedules the next appointment, and does follow-up care, and then walks that patient out to the front door again. And there's not another interaction really with anyone else in my office. Even though I have 10 ops, remember I have 2 doctors going and I have 3 other hygienists working at the same time. We use the same philosophy for all of my other operatories. And this is just kind of personal private care on a front deskless level, if you've heard about that term, that operates kind of like this. So when I go into the Apple Store to buy an iPhone, it's that employee that actually hands me my iPhone, takes my credit card, and can train me on it, and then walks me out to the front. And we were doing front deskless before Apple Store was, but other hotels do it. I think it's a very personal way to operate. So while you don't have to rip out your front desk like I did, I think some of these things we learn from other businesses, and I'll talk about other things that I've learned from other companies like Ritz Carlton and Disney and places like that we've copied in my office. If you look around at other businesses, there are so many things that we can copy and implement in a dental practice that we previously wouldn't really imagine would be applicable to us, that will make your practice more enjoyable, make the customer service experience for your patients more beneficial, and will connect you on a more personal level to your patients. And it's actually a very fun way to develop your business and practice. So here's another view of the water wall in my office. Okay, David, go ahead.
So someone asked, and I already know the answer, but I'll let you go ahead and answer this. So if I call your office to make an appointment, who's the one? I mean, typically in my office, because I have a front desk.
Yeah.
One of my receptionists would answer the phone. Who would answer that phone?
Yeah. So remember when I talked about my team, I have 3 clinical assistants, I have 3 hygienists, and I have 3 business team members. And I do have a business office that's kind of hooked to the waiting area or the reception room. And all of the business happens there. It's just not at a front desk. So that is a kind of a working room, but it's not accessible to patients. It's where phone calls come in, where we talk to new patients, where we do the financing, and where my team members work on computers and everything, but it's not connected to the front door. It's not connected to any of the areas where patients actually access. It's just a business area that's set off from that, but yet is quickly and easily accessed by my team so they can get in and out of there. So we do have people that answer the phones, and that's their main role. When you call my office, you'll get Dina or Paula or Tracy probably, and you can just imagine them sitting in a business office rather than at a front desk. So when new patients come, we have to acquaint them to our philosophy quickly, and we just tell them about it, and they suddenly get it. And when they walk in, they know that they relax, or they'll be greeted by somebody, or they can get a bottle of water or whatever. And our goal is to have someone meet them immediately and take them back to their room. So I'm hoping that answered that question. Think so, David? All right, I think he's still on, or maybe.
Hey, Chris, there's a question that popped up here.
Go ahead.
The question is, with COVID, how are you handling the patient flow? And I'll kind of add a part two. How has this philosophy enabled you to serve your COVID or your patients through COVID without interruption?
So I guess in COVID, it's been perfect for me because we don't have a front desk. We didn't have to worry about, and in Utah, when we were adopting COVID principles, they asked us to put up plexiglass or wear a mask and protective wear. So we actually had an environment that immediately adapted to COVID because we have private areas in our office. We didn't have a front desk, and everybody's wearing masks. And so I think if I'm answering the question right, we just immediately tweaked a few things and launched right into an environment that I think is very COVID friendly, because we like this private environment that separates patients from others in a reception room or in individual bays. We just kind of like launched right into our own environment. So I think I'm answering that question okay. COVID didn't bother us too much. We had to adopt things as far as PPE goes. I already had private rooms. We don't have a front desk. It just worked out great for us.
Chris, how many patients do you typically see a day? And the other thing I think would be important too is, you know, the way your assistant goes out and greets, and just, I mean, we do that in our office, but our hygienist doesn't do it. How does the hygiene do that?
So if we're running on time, which we have, the way we do our scheduling, we give hygienists time to wrap up their current appointment and to walk their patient to the door, while a backup person in my office, someone available, can turn their room over. But the goal then would be for that hygienist even to greet their next patient and walk them back to their hygiene treatment room. And granted, nothing that we ever set out on always works. It's like a football play. You know, everyone knows what the play is, and it's called in the huddle. And then once the snap happens, it's either going to go exactly the way you want it to, or it's going to change. So we know what to do if that changes. If a patient is, or a patient's late, or if a hygienist is running behind, we have a backup system where someone else will greet that patient and get started on x-rays. But the original play and the way we start that hour, that appointment, is for the hygienist to greet the patient and take them back and do it exactly like I talked about Demery, how she will, for instance, if it's Julie, she'll greet the patient, take them back, provide the entire hygiene experience, and book the next appointment, take a payment with a payment right there in the treatment room, and schedule the next appointment, file insurance claim, and then walk them right out, put their coat on and walk them right out to the door, while someone behind the scenes quickly turns a room over and gets ready for her next patient. It seems a little like there's a lot going on, but it is such a personal way to take care of people, where patients never feel like they're passed off to multiple people. I think one of the barriers for communication in dentistry is when you try and communicate to patients through 3 or 4 different people in the office. And we've tried to streamline that through one person. So to take it even one step farther, one of the things that we do is we will even have follow-up calls for that night or on treatment made by the same person. So if Demery was a clinical assistant, she'll even make quick calls at the end of the day to check on that patient. Or If a patient calls with a question about their temporary crown, we even connect them with Demery to be sure that that question is answered, because Demery was there and she was a part of that appointment and she can answer the question accurately. So we just take it as far as we can within reason to be sure that patients feel like they're being cared for by as few people as possible to streamline the overall customer experience. Hopefully that helps with that question. Okay, let's move on to number 3. And I can go back and answer questions on that if they've come up. But my other thing, like I talked about before, and we've touched on this already, is taking time to do stuff. I have a long list of things that I can't wait to do, and we all have those lists. We go to a meeting, or we listen to a webinar, or we read something and we make a mental note, or we write it in our phone, or we make a list of things that we want to do in our practice. The challenge is, how are we going to do these things? And if we go back on Monday and jump in the grind again, and we're seeing 10 patients a day, David, I didn't answer your question about number of patients. I promise I will. No matter how many patients we're seeing in a day, we feel like we don't have time to do things. So I have adopted this philosophy, this 80-20 philosophy, which goes way back to Kodak study and everything, but I've taken that to my own business and promised myself that I will work 20% of my time and my effort on my practice. Because really, once we're done with the learning experience and we get back to work on Monday, how are we going to do all of these things? And how are we going to accomplish our goals or go through our checklist? And it's easy in a year to listen to another lecture and realize that we never did anything with the material that we learned. We never actually changed. And I'm not perfect at it, but because I've dedicated time to do it, I feel like I'm a better person and a better dentist. And my sanity is there because I've already know that I've got time to work on my goals. So I think you should write that down for the people that are on this call. And if you're going to do anything in your life differently on Monday, write down 80-20, or even start with 90-10 or 95-5, but find time that you have dedicated that is as important to you to patient time, that's uninterrupted, that's dedicated in your life, where you'll sit down and do stuff that will make your life and your practice better. So part of how I do that is I dedicate these team days, and you guys know, David talked about that, where I spend either 1 or 2 days in my month with my office team and my staff, all of us there at the office with no patients. We don't have anybody walking in the door for dental appointments, and we spend all 8 hours with a combination of activities and also learning time on making our business better. And I kind of wrote down what my goals of those days are, so that you can, hope you write these down, and then you can implement them later because you're going to spend more time on your practice. But why I do these, and I think it's hard for people to grasp how important those are, or how you could ever come up with material to fill a full day of once a month with your office team. But I promise, once you get started building your practice, these days go by very fast, and you can develop this really long list of things you want to do with your team. So my goals for these team days are to develop leadership in my team. I want people that want to be there and they see their role in my practice as a career, and they grow personally. I want to perfect my office systems. All the things that we do every day, like operating a front deskless office, which is a strategic challenge if we're not doing it well and we don't practice it. But we do all of those things and practice all these things that I love and make them as perfect as we can on these team days. And we schedule these team days. They're scheduled out actually a year in advance. So in January, my office team knows how many of these training days we're going to have and when they are, so they know they're going to work. This goes back a long time ago this is probably like 2009, when we had, this is kind of an example of what we do. We get around a board meeting table and set our goals or follow up on things we've learned. We make assignments. It's probably like they do at Dental Intel, which is more common in the corporate world, but not all that common in dentistry, a board type meeting around a board table. This is in my office, where we work together like a board of directors to grow our business. We do mini clinics on these days, on these team days, and they're presented by my own team, where they will sometimes bring the content. fact, Dr. Harris and I were planning some of those team days today where we train on common things like impression quality, x-ray quality, new clinical procedures, new advances in periodontal care, so that everyone, including my front office, is as current on techniques and what's new in dentistry as the rest of us. I don't want anyone to be less informed about what we're doing clinically than anyone else. So we work hard on that. Even the people that are answering the phones learn and know what we do in the back all the time. I do lunch and learn with specialists. It's common for, and I don't know if that happens in all of your practices, but it's common for specialists to invite us to their office to learn what they do or to take us out to lunch. We have enjoyed flipping the tables that way and inviting specialist offices to come to our office. And we spend time talking about what we do and giving them a similar presentation that they might give to us, showing them before and after pictures, having them meet our team, walking them through our office with an office tour, and serving lunch and doing something similar. It's so common for, like I say, for specialists to do that, and we've enjoyed doing that ourselves. And really what I'm doing here, if you haven't picked up on it, I'm giving you my long list of fun ideas for my 20% of my time. Clinical training I talked about. I want accountability for my team. If I spend money to take them somewhere to a course, like I'll take them to Crown Council, I'll take them to the AACD meeting or to something like that, I want to know when I leave that conference and have spent tens of thousands of dollars taking my team there. I want to know when I come back that there's going to be a return on that investment, and my team knows that all the stuff they're learning at these education experiences, that they're going to be accountable for that and come back and sit around that board table on a Thursday and share what they learned and help create our list of objectives to help our practice grow and help our business grow. We work on dental intel, practice monitoring. We will bring up on that monitor you saw in our boardroom, dental intel, and run through our key indicators and run through our provider polls and what's happening this year and what are our lead indicators and what's happened in the past and how are we going to make 2021 different. Now that we know about COVID and we have 4 months of experience with COVID, what can we tweak and what can we do to make the experience better and still operate efficiently like we were pre-COVID, which I think is really important. I'll train my assistants on business and finance training. I want them to know about our profit and loss statement. I'm not afraid to show them our profit and loss statement with exceptions. Sometimes we don't share them with all the details, but I want them to know how much our phone bill is, how much of the lab bill is, what it takes to finance a practice, because I've learned over the years if I don't tell them, and they're going to think, well, for instance, if my crown is $1,000 and they're going to think that I make $990 out of that $1,000. I think it's important for them to know what goes into financing a practice and why we care about the finances and the supply costs and how much we order and what we do. And I take time to share that all with them. And my team all knows how much our phone bill is and how much it costs to do certain things. They know how much my lab bill is. I think that stuff is super important. And I haven't been afraid to kind of open up my financial books with how much we collect, how much we produce, what our collection percentage is, and all that stuff we get in dental intel. If you're not already keyed into dental intel, I recommend that you get there. But those things I freely share with my office. And I think it's number 5 on my tips that I'll go over in a minute. I want to treat my team like owners and involve them in business principles like that. I interview my office team members all the time on those days, one-on-one interviews to connect with them. We go to the lab, and Kent will attest to that one of my favorite things to do is to take my entire office to the dental lab and let them see the milling process and how cases enter the lab, how they're unpackaged, and that complicated path of even getting a single crown from impression to my office, so they can have some sense of understanding of the value of even a single crown and what it takes to get back to our office, so that they are proud of what we do every day and are appreciative of a quality impression, appreciative of what it takes to get a single crown that will drop in with no adjustments and looks like a tooth and is stress-free to see it. I think that part, even my front desk, or not front desk, but my business team, it's important for them to understand that. We travel to other specialist offices, and then I'll talk about this in a minute about how I love to take time to benchmark or to copy other non-dental businesses. I think there's so much we can learn from people like Apple or Ritz Carlton or Nordstrom, that we can bring back some really cool principles and implement them into our dental practice and become better dentists and better providers of care. I do my team's dentistry. So if my team needs fillings or their teeth cleaned or crown or Invisalign, we do all that on these 2 Thursdays. This is my 20% of my time. We do the semi-annual cleanup day, like David talked about, where it's crazy, but I take 2 full days all day where we clean the office and we try and get it right back to brand new condition. We do it in our homes, but how many of us actually do it in our offices so that we walk into our office, it has a brand new smell, feeling, and it's as organized as it was when the office was first finished and when we first built it. And that's like my regular facelift projects, is just small design changes we make to keep the office feeling current and new. We role play phone calls and things on these days. We talk about phone calls that went bad and things, customer experiences that we could have made better, or feedback we got from patients that weren't on par, where we can make changes in our office to be better. And we bring those things to that kind of board meeting and we talk about those, and everyone listens and everyone's on par. And we talk about what we could change to avoid those same things in the future. My favorite thing to do, if you've ever wondered what you could possibly do with a team day around a board table like I showed you, or in a team meeting, it's this middle thing right here: inventing your own competitor. Occasionally we will sit down with a blank piece of paper, and it's a super fun activity. We sit down and we talk about a practice that, if it moved in across the street from us, would put us out of business. So we try and invent our own competitive dental practice, and what it would be like that if it was our neighbor, that would completely wipe us out. And we write down all of the things that practice would be, what it would look like, what it would smell like, what appointment availability times would be like, what the incoming phone call would be like, what the overall patient experience would be like, what the dentistry would look like, all of those things. And we make this big, giant, long list, and it's this really fun activity. And then we will spend the next several days in team meetings becoming that practice before someone else can. And that is, I guess, in essence, what this 20% of my time is spent doing, is staying ahead of the game for me, to be sure that never happens, that someone doesn't move across the street from me and become the better version of me. And so I just work hard to get there before they do. And it's very easy to do. And I love involving my employees on that process. It's a great way for them to buy into what we're doing all the time.
Chris, could I interject something?
Yeah, please do.
For those of you that are on the webinar, one thing that Chris may cover going forward, and I apologize if I'm getting ahead of you, Chris, but Chris is a frequent visitor to our laboratory, and 99.9% of our clients are actually across the country and not in the state of Utah. But one of the great habits that I think Chris does, and many of our other clients, including David, do this, is getting a pulse check from the laboratory on how he's doing. Not only are we interested in how we're doing in serving his practice, but he's humble enough to subject himself to our scrutiny, and having that win-win reciprocating relationship is a great habit that I think I can't speak for him, but I can. I know it's made him a much better dentist, and we're a much better laboratory because of having that kind of a relationship. And so I think that's a great habit. You can still do that through Zoom or through just a phone call or through text. So Anyway, appreciate it.
It reminds me, and that is something that anyone can do. So I'm prepping with one eye now. And that in itself is that is the hardest thing I've ever done in dentistry, even harder than prepping with two eyes the very first day. But I walked in the other day into the model room and got together with Heather, and I said, Heather, you're trimming my dies. Am I doing okay? Because I wanted to know if I was making it happen. And with one eye or two eyes or however you're doing it, there is so much value in taking time to connect with your lab and find out what you could do to make it better. And I think that if you'll do that and make that effort, even by phone call, that they're going to treat your cases completely differently than if they've never spoken to you and they don't know you.
Absolutely, we give it.
They are happy to talk to you. I've never had anybody that I either called at Utah Valley or stopped and talked to that didn't embrace the opportunity to visit, because those guys on the other end want to be the best also. And I think sometimes they're limited by a lack of communication to become as good as they want to be. So if they were to take time, 20% of their day or their time, and build, it's going to be talking with their doctors and learning and everything, and in communication with doctors so that they can be the best lab tech or waxer or ceramist or whatever. And I think that, granted, I have the ability to walk in and talk to Heather, but I think anybody could call and talk to their ceramist or talk to their technician and just ask the question, how am I doing? What can I do to make my cases better on your end so that on my end, they drop in and it's less stressful on my end? I think that's what you're getting at, Kent, right?
Absolutely.
So everything that I've talked about up until now gets to this Great Habits book. So sometimes I see people when I'm doing this lecture live and they're writing stuff down. I am going to benefit you and send you my Great Habits list if you want it, but I don't want it to be yours. I want you to build your own things that you do. So in one of these team meetings, we sat down as an office and we asked ourselves, and I was with a group of team members that have been with me for a long time, and I asked them, I said, if we were just to write down and not stop everything that we do that we feel like is unique and makes us different and better, what would those things be? And so we wrote them down, and we went on forever, and it went on for 30 minutes or so. And that was just the start of this list that I call my Great Habits list. And it really is the whole basis of this hour and a half that I'm talking about right now. It's the stuff that we do that we don't ever want to forget that we do. So it's this law of entropy that you hear about a lot, that if we're not constantly reviewing the great things and the good ideas that we've got and being sure that we're still doing it, it's likely that we're going to stop doing it without ever realizing it. So we've gone through and written down all those things as part of my Play to Win recommendation, but this is my Great Habits list, and this is just the beginning of it. I'm going to run through some of these so you get the picture of why I built it and how you could create your own. I will send you my own, but it won't mean the same thing to you, because a lot of these you'll say, what does that mean? But to us, it means everything, because we know when we learned that, why we do it, and why it makes a difference for the patient experience or for the clinical outcome or for our business profitability. We know that. And some things will make total sense to the people that are on the call right now, because I'm going to talk about them. But also, you should be making your own, and you can call it your own great habits list, or call it whatever you want. But you need to write these things down so you remember to keep doing them. Otherwise, you do them for 2 weeks, and then you briefly forget. And then in a year, you'll say, remember when we used to follow the 10-foot rule or whatever? This is a good example I'll talk about in a second, but you won't keep doing them unless they're documented somewhere. So I'm a big proponent of that. So I'm going to run through some. Write them down if you want, but you're going to get them in my Word document that I'm going to send to Stacy. But so one of the things that I got from Ritz Carlton was, and my office all knows, that we follow the 10-foot rule. That might not mean a lot to you, but to me and to my team, it reminds us that if any one of us pass within 10 feet of a customer or a patient, we acknowledge them with a smile or some kind of a kind gesture rather than just being focused on what's currently on our mind. And like I've talked about before, we love to steal ideas from Ritz Carlton. I visited Ritz Carlton once and I asked the manager about one of the things that they do and they recommend with their employees, and he introduced me to their 10-foot rule. Another one, we speak to our patients knee to knee and eye to eye. I stole that from Outback Steakhouse. So when you go to Outback, I think they still do it, but I always noticed that when I was going to order off the menu, their waitresses or waiters got down on one knee, eye to eye with us, rather than standing and taking our order. And I quickly learned that that's a more personable way to talk to people. So my team now knows that when we're in the treatment room and talking to people and about treatment or about their visit or about payment or anything, that we don't stand above them. We sit in a chair eye to eye with them, or I'll even get down on a knee so that I'm not in that weird, I'm not towering over a patient and talking down to them. Seems odd, but next time you guys go into Outback Steakhouse and you order, you'll notice that they're down on your level, and I guarantee you they do it for a similar reason. We do really crazy stuff in my office, and if you ever visit my office, you'll see, and some of these things won't make sense to you, or they'll think they're corny, but in the environment of our office, it doesn't really seem that weird. So we use these really weird silver platters, not weird, but we use silver platters to serve things to our patients. Pre-med, a rinse, a hydrogen peroxide rinse because of COVID, and all these things, we use these little silver platters just for a little bit of a touch that's non-dental, but is more customer service oriented. We take our patients' coats off and on. So, and I love that. When a patient walks in the wintertime and they're wearing a big coat, we take them off and hang them on the hook. And then when they leave, we love to put their coats back on them. It's just something that we learned from other businesses and other customer service businesses. We take 5 at the beginning of every appointment. This is just my philosophy of, whenever possible, to take 5 minutes before you greet a patient to acquaint yourself, using dental intel to find out about who this patient is, what's their unscheduled treatment, who are their family members, who's unscheduled in their family that needs a next appointment, finding out how long they've been in our practice, finding out how old they are, looking at their patient photos so you know what they look like, and also looking at the treatment room to be sure it's clean, sterile, and in 2020 is COVID ready for them. So that when a patient walks in, it is completely ready for them. We stole this from Ritz Carlton because they also do something similar, where when the housekeeping cleans a room, they have a very specific way that they set the room up. So when you walk in, it's that Ritz Carlton experience. The TV is on a certain channel, the remote is in a certain place, all of those things that I'm a little bit weird about having our treatment rooms the exact same way. We keep our patients with the same hygienist every time, whenever possible. I like that idea. We deliver flowers to our patients after a smile makeover appointment. I love doing that. When a patient comes back for a follow-up visit for their after pictures and for their studio pictures, we love delivering a bouquet of flowers to women, and then a gift basket of fun things that we've put together as we've gotten to know our patients and learned about their interests. We throw together some cool things into a big gift basket, and sometimes we do that for women, but for guys, we usually throw together some cool things and give them as a gift basket. There's an example of the flowers that we use, but just as a thank you for the relationship and for the trust that they've given us. We offer all of our patients lip balm, a mint rinse, and a hot towel at every appointment. These are just things, once again, that you may not do, but it's just the things that we've written down in our practice that we never want to forget that we do, lest we stop doing them. We greet our patients at the door, or sometimes even outside of our building on a rainy day with an umbrella. I love that my office does not smell like a dental office, and we do everything that we can to be sure that when a patient walks in, they don't smell fluoride, a sterilizer, or latex gloves. I hate thinking that when a patient walks in, they'll say, I'm in a dental office. I want them to walk in and have other sensations that lets them know that I'm going to do not only that part of the experience, but I'm going to cover all the rest of the patient experience to be sure that it's unlike an experience they've never had before. We call all of our patients that have had anesthetic. And I mentioned to you before that Demery will make calls. I'll make calls. Dr. Harris makes calls. We call people at the end of the day that have had anesthetic. And if we miss them, we leave a message or we send a text message just to be sure that we're not done with the process until they are completely comfortable and pain-free, and that we want to be involved in the entire experience even once they've left our office. We've talked about this. We also deep clean our treatment rooms once a week. So besides going through the office twice a year, we go through every week for 30 minutes and just clean the floors and clean everything. I guess I'm a clean freak. I clean the porch 3 times a day, dust the leaves off. We see true emergencies on the same day that they call. That's a great habit of ours. And if someone really has an emergency and it's 4:30, we're going to see them. If it's not a true emergency, and we can quickly do that. If they broke a tooth 2 days ago and they call at 4:30, we're going to see them tomorrow. But if they just barely broke a front tooth or it's a traumatic injury, we are going to see them that day. We make financial arrangements for anything over $250 in my office, and we just randomly set that fee. But basically, if that was a recare visit, the cost of a recare visit, I want to know that anyone else coming to my office when they walk in for treatment from the doctor, they already have financial arrangements, that we don't have to talk money to them before we get them numb or before we start treatment, that I want all of that stuff handled before. So the patient experience during the dental treatment isn't tied to a discussion or the awkward discussion about money. It's already handled. I've also found that patients come to appointments if the finances and the financial arrangements are handled before the appointment is ever even made or before they've come to the office. I guarantee they are coming to their appointment if you've taken money or the discussion about money off the table. We offer patients at least one VIP service at every appointment: chapstick, a warm towel, a fresh rinse, something like that. If you've been to my office, you know that my team all wears a little earpiece with a personal radio where they communicate with each other. I don't wear them, and Dr. Harris doesn't. My team wants me, they call it being the mayor. They want the doctors to be the mayor and basically be engaged in talking to people and all the time and involved with our patients, and they handle the behind the scenes stuff and just tell us where to go, what room to go into, and what to do. And so they handle all the communication, but they do it quietly through an earpiece and a private radio. I think a lot of people do that, but if you want to know, I use a Kenwood radio system, and it's very easy to find those. It's just a regular CB radio that we find a private channel, and they tuck a earpiece in their ear and they run the little microphone out on their button, and they communicate like that instead of the old traditional kind of paging systems. We don't use those anymore. This list is we don't do this actual thing anymore because Dental Intel is so amazing at it, but this is what we did before Dental Intel. But I think it illustrates my point. We run what we used to call a dead, moved, or coming back list every day. And basically it's our goal to be sure that when a patient leaves our office, they are either dead or they're moving or they have an appointment to come back. So essentially it's our joke about everyone that leaves has a return appointment so that they stay in our loop of being an active member of our practice or our hygiene practice. We're not perfect at it. We're constantly monitoring that through Dental Intel, but I love that. I love that commitment that we all have to, whenever possible, we ensure that that patients are coming back. I love that my team all shows up at the same time at 7:30 every day. And I love our commitment to all leave at the same time. It's just the way I practice. I don't have some employees come at 8. I don't have some leave at 2. And while some might not be able to accomplish what we have and what we can do, that's just something that I've done, that I've picked that habit to be sure that I have a team that shows up all at the same time and we all stay and leave at the same time. We never leave patients alone without asking their permission. So if Demery has to leave the room and walk out and leave a patient alone, she just ask their permission to do so, so they know that she's going to be gone just a short period of time. Something I've copied from Disney is we never point. And if you go to Disneyland and you ask one of their cast members or one of the employees where the restroom is, they will actually walk you closer to the restroom so you can actually see it, rather than quickly just point and tell you it's around the corner and on your left. My experience is they will take you and walk you there and show you where it is. And I picked that up from Disney World when I was there a few years ago. We have certain ways that we say things in my office. So if we call a patient and they're late, if we call or text and leave a message, we have ways in my office that we say things that represent our practice philosophy, and we write those things down. And then during these team days, we decide what we're going to say. So we're all saying it exactly the same. Here's another clean thing again. I'm sorry about this part, but we check our bathrooms every hour. Tracy in my office is assigned to check the restrooms every hour. I don't want anyone to go in with a dirty toilet seat or toilet paper on the floor. I want it to smell good and look good and represent kind of our overall experience philosophy. Our other commitment is when patients have been away for 2 years, they enter our practice again through a new patient comprehensive exam experience. So even though they aren't a new patient, if they've been away for 2 years, we want them coming back through a similar experience that we do through a new patient. So that means whatever we do for new patients, we start all over again with the same series of x-rays, with the same tour of the office, with the same kind of getting to know you conversation, because they've been away longer than they like, and they're probably out of the loop of treatment planning. They might have forgotten their treatment plan. They might have a long list of things that they want to talk about that you can't cover in a hygiene visit. And so we reserve like a new patient experience for them to reacquaint them with kind of the flow of our recall program and our practice. And I find that I schedule more treatment, I develop a better relationship with those people, and I connect with them, and our practice is more profitable if we'll just do that. It's about an hour and a half as opposed to an hour when we do that. So we schedule some extra time, and it might seem like that might not be profitable to your hygienist. I guarantee you it doubles practice profitability and hygiene profitability when you're addressing perio. You have time to use the intraoral camera. You have time to thoroughly do your oral cancer exam. You have time to talk about treatment, review their old treatment plan, develop a new treatment plan. And it's not a rushed appointment. And it's been huge for me in terms of transferring profitability to restorative dentistry and to your practice in general. Another great habit, we offer umbrellas, and when it's raining, we do crazy things like walk patients all the way to their car with an umbrella. We feel like when we are in the office, I got this from Disney, and we have our little morning huddle and go through the dental intel huddle program. And then when we walk out of our room where we have our huddle, my team, we all agree that we're on stage like the cast members or the employees of Disneyland are, where we take on a new role and we have to forget that we're in the middle of a divorce, or something stressful is going on at home, or we were in a car accident the day before, or crazy things like that that are in our lives outside of the practice. We just remind ourselves that we're going to be in the office and in our role as team members and offer our level of care to patients and try and forget about stuff that's happening outside and not bring our baggage to work. We hand select 2 patients a day to write a review online about our practice, and we talk about that during our morning huddle, where before we start our day. But we pick people that we're going to ask to write a review, and we personally ask them, and we send them a link to write a review for our practice. It's a great way to get it done, and I feel like that a personal invitation has been huge for me to get a quality reviews from somebody, not just a quick 5-star, but something where they will actually take time to write about that experience. So I will send you my great habits list. If you want it, you can upload it. I think it will be helpful for you to see that we've done it. Some of the items might make complete sense to you. Some might seem really weird. Like my team even wrote down this one themselves. We wear lipstick and we pull our hair back, etc. They wrote that one down to remind them what they want to look like and what kind of their presentation is with their appearance. in my office, and they're going to create some of their own. So some of these won't be as beneficial to you, but I recommend that you do it so that in a year, you're still doing the stuff that you were doing on whatever today is, November 18th, 2020. You want to keep doing your good stuff. More on team day. How am I doing on time? David, am I okay?
We're doing all right.
All right.
Perfect.
I think I have just 10 or 15, 20 minutes left maybe, then we can do some questions. But service recovery, that's our commitment to bring stuff that comes up where we didn't perform the way we wanted to. Problems with phone conversations, problems with treatment, patient didn't have a great experience. We bring that stuff to these team meetings and talk about them. Everybody cross-trained, so everyone knows about everybody else's job. That's really important to me. I want everyone in my office to be able to, within reason, to be able to take over for someone else if they're sick. So granted, an assistant can't be a hygienist, but she could certainly help with much of the appointment if she needed to. A hygienist could sub in as a dental assistant if she had to. My front desk can take impressions if I ask them to. My hygienist can answer the phones and schedule new patient appointments if they need to. And we spend a lot of time cross-training like that so that with a team of 9 people, they can interchange and work like a team and step in and take over their position within reason as needed. And really this idea of the vision book is my playbook. These great habits and the things that we do in my office, I put them into a book that we created that everyone in my office has their own copy. And it's their playbook that we use when we get together and make notes and kind of try and invent that practice I talked about, where we're trying to invent something that we want to be, and we write down our ideas and we use that playbook for down the road. We do community activities, we raise money, we go to the United Way and build backpacks for kids. So all these community service activities that we want to do. It's Christmas time now, so everyone wants to do something service oriented, a Sup for Santa or something. We reserve these team days to give back to the community. We do marketing visits to our top 100 clients, patients, and strategic partners like Dental Intel. They mentioned we brought them at the start of the call. They talked about a marketing visit that we did to them. We give back to the community. Those are all the things that we do, and really just probably in reality just a sample of what we do, but goes back to this point that I firmly believe in, that the biggest difference between practices that exceed and excel, whether or not it's in the age of COVID or whether it's not, whatever we are in 2021 or 2022, the biggest difference between practices that make it happen and those that don't has not that much to do with what we know. In fact, I think it has little to do with that. It has more to do with taking the time to actually do the things that you want to do. Because I've been with people before, and we've all been together and we've learned something at a dental course, and we remind ourselves that we've heard that idea before, or we say, oh, I've heard that, I need to do that someday. But I guess it's my goal to not say that, to not say, I wish I had time to do that, or I wish I'd remember to do that. So this whole concept of mine of spending 20% of your time on your business has to do with actually doing stuff, to being that practice or that business that takes time to implement our cool ideas of things that we learn and to be different. Number 5 of my habits, or the things that I recommend you think about, is treating your team like owners, involving them in your practice in a way that lets them buy into their role in your practice as almost as a professional. So something that they want, where they want to be and who they want to be, and want to spend a long time in your business. In fact, I think on one of my objectives that I submitted to Dental Intel, I want my team to want to stay with me and not have this just be a stopping point for them, because I spend so much time involving them in the development of my business. I don't want this to be a quick job for them where they spend 6 months or a year and move on to something else. I'm looking for people that I spend a huge investment in developing them, and then I want them to stay there. So these next items that I've written down are things that I personally have done to try and build value in my team members' positions in my office so they see it as a permanent landing spot for them. So I love to mastermind and network with other dental offices, not necessarily the ones down the street, but other practices, it could be, but other practices across the country that are being the practice that we want to become, and finding out who those are, learning about them, talking to them. If they're in close proximity, networking with them really physically and getting together with them and sharing ideas. And that, going back to the Crown Council, if you don't know about the Crown Council, that's the essence of what we do inside the Crown Council, is we share ideas just like that. We are free to do kind of what I'm doing right now, telling you as much as we can about what we do that have worked, or the mistakes that we've made, so that you spend time copying genius or copying someone else's successes instead of on our own somewhere inventing on our own without input from others, inventing a mediocre practice, which is what we would all do if we didn't have mentors or we didn't have people that were willing to share information. And that is probably one of the characteristics that I admire most about Dr. Hornbrook, is he is never ever sharing anything with the idea in mind of, what am I going to get back from that? He is free to share any of his knowledge with any dentist or anybody in a way that is more selfless than anybody that I've really ever met, and kind of why early on in my career I adopted him as a mentor, because he's willing to do that. And I think that when you go and find other practices that you want to follow and copy, that should be your goal, to be able to network other people to copy what they've done. And it's a good way to build a dental profession in your own practice. I give my team members what I call a $500 marker. And that is their ability to discount or make a change to a patient's account. They always tell me they've done it, but they don't have to ask my permission to do it. So for instance, Kelly Jo gets a phone call, a patient's concerned about a bill they didn't know about, they're confused about a price, or something was over what they were quoted, and KJ senses that it's a conflict and it might get in the way of a patient relationship. She has the ability, and anyone on my team has the ability, to make an adjustment to a patient's account up to $500 without asking my permission. And while that might seem like a lot, I can tell you it's never abused. It's always used, it seems like, after I train someone how to use it. It's always used as a practice building philosophy and a business building philosophy. And it builds this sense of professionalism in my team, where they have ownership, and then the patient on the other side, on the other end, suddenly has value in that person's role and relationship. I don't know, I guess I'm explaining it well, but it eliminates conflict over money in a way where you don't end up arguing. And a patient, what I don't want to happen really is, I don't want a patient to call and say, now, Dr. Hammond quoted me $1,500 for that, or someone quoted me $1,500 for that crown, and it was $1,600. I don't want Kelly Jo to say, well, let me put you on hold and ask Dr. Hammond what to do. I want her to say, I get that. Let me just quickly take care of that so it's not an issue. And I want that kind of thing handled quickly so it's not a conflict to my business. And while, yes, we reduce patients' accounts, and theoretically, we reduce our collections a little at that moment, I guarantee you it's a huge practice builder for me and grows my practice revenues in a way that I would not do without it. I also share the profits of my business with my team. I involve them in profit sharing, where my team knows at the end of every month, they can look back through dental intel and find out how the practice performed, and they know what their share or what their bonus is and what their portion is of the collections. And they actually have a formula where they know what their bonus check will be. And while everything that we don't do about money, in the end, the goal of what we all do and why we go to work is for life enjoyment, but it's also to take money home to our individual families as dentists. But it's also the reason why our team members go to work, is to take money home to their family. And you can't ignore that. You have to admit that they want, that's the reason why they come to work. There are other ways to keep them there, But I've decided in my own practice to involve them in the profits of the business. In fact, I use this formula of 24%. So in my practice, when I look at my profit and loss statement and I look at the pie that represents my office budget, I know that I've dedicated, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be different for everyone, but based on how you work with your accountant and what you decide to do, if you decide to share profits with your team. But I allocate 24% of my every dollar that comes into my office to paying my employees. So if at the end of the month our collections are bigger than average, and their base salaries only add up to 24%, the team knows that they're gonna bonus to be sure that I'm always paying them 24% of my budget. I hope I explained that well. But they share essentially. I have if there's 12 of them, they all have a 2% stake in every dollar that comes into my office. I distribute that monthly. I don't wait and do it quarterly. I don't have it involved. I don't have a complex formula. I don't do it in a random method so that I don't want them thinking they're supposed to bonus and then they don't. I want them to understand enough about it where they get involved in it and excited about it and they buy into it. So I do bonus my team. I also bonus them all the same. I don't bonus my hygienists on what they do, and you can do that. That might be a great way for it to work in your practice. But for me, and what works for me, I bonus all of my team members. Their bonus checks are fairly equal. There is a small tweak depending upon how many days they work for me and what their yearly calendar looks like. But essentially, their bonus checks, regardless of their role in the office and regardless of their pay, their hourly rate, they bonus the same amount within reason. If I have a part-time employee, I would not do that. I don't have any part-time employees, so they all bonus about the same, and that creates an excitement and an understanding as to how the bonus works. And I love to distribute it as quick as I can so that the reward comes quickly right after the actual event or right after the actual month or the excitement of whatever happened in October or November. So we've bonused already. By mid-month in November, we're going to bonus very quickly for what happened in October. Just my way of doing it. Some of these things you are just specific to me, but I give everyone in my office that works for me a company credit card. They all have an American Express card with the company name on it that they use for practice expenses, for marketing opportunities, for buying a supply online or something like that, and all the way up to something like Tracy, one of my assistants, was in a restaurant the other day, and she looked across the restaurant and saw one of my employees one of my patients that had just finished a full smile, a really big case, and she was with 4 of her friends. And Tracy used her company credit card to buy that table's dinner. And Tracy knows, based on my practice philosophy, that she has complete freedom to do that without asking me. The advantage to that is it's a way for me to market to that employee. But the bigger bang for my buck is when she does that and the conversation at that dinner table now becomes about that patient's new smile, their experience in my office. And we love that we instantly switched the conversation to dentistry. So, and once again, this is one of those things that gives a lot of freedom to your employees, and whether or not you can do that or you decide to do that in your office. I'm giving you examples of things that I've done that have created ownership in my team and that I would not do without. My team members have never taken advantage of this luxury of having a company credit card in their wallet. I use American Express, and so I get alerts and everything, and I kind of know what's happening on my American Express card all the time, but I don't monitor their charges unless there's something that I want to know what it was, and they always bring me receipts, and I want to know what it was so I can kind of track everything. But that is something that I do. Calendaring I do kind of weird also, and I hope these things are beneficial to people that are on the call, but I schedule my entire year a year in advance. So on Thursday, the 4th, I think it is, of December, my team and I are going to sit down for 2 hours, and we're going to look at all of 2021, and we're going to plan out, Dr. Harris and I are going to plan out with them what 2021 looks like, when the doctor's vacations are, when my team members' vacations are, what we're going to do on each team day, what education experiences we're going to go to, what are our goals for that year. And we're going to do all of that in December as we anticipate what's coming up in 2021, using information we get from Dental Intel and everything. So we have our planning meeting that includes us planning out the calendar, so that because I try to avoid the experience of on Wednesday having a dental hygienist come to me and say, I want to go on a cruise next week, or I got invited to go on vacation next week. Can I take next week off? And when I set the culture of setting a calendar far enough in advance, it sets the tone so that my team members don't launch surprises on me that are hard for me to handle as a business. It just sets that culture so that we handle those schedule changes far enough in advance where the company can adapt. Everybody on my team gets a personal business card. So my assistants have a business card just like mine, rather than saying, but underneath it doesn't say dentist, it says dental assistant, treatment coordinator, financial coordinator, marketing coordinator. They have their own titles, and I give them all business cards. I want them feeling like this is their profession and this is who they are, and have them identify with my business, and then have the ability to hand a business card to a patient to call them back specifically with questions, or to hand a business card out in the public when they're asked where they work and what they do. I want them seeing their business the same way that I do as we're out in the community trying to market ourselves. So those are my 5 tips. And we're going to open it up for questions in a little bit. I think we have 10 or 15 minutes for questions. But I think you should find a mentor. Don't be a CE junkie. Don't overwhelm yourself so much with information that it clutters your mind and clutters your agenda where you can't put anything into action. Learn dental photography. It's one of the skills I'm glad I have and that I would never do without. And I'm going to get you my camera settings. Besides that, attend a photography course, get on YouTube and learn dental photography, whatever you have to do to take quality photographs that represent your quality dentistry. If your photographs suck, patients are going to question your clinical dentistry, I promise. If your photographs are awesome, they're going to assume the dentistry is awesome. It's crazy how that works. Take time to do stuff. My 80-20 rule, play to win, involve your team and your business through team days, profit sharing, all those things. And then treat your team like owners is one of my values. And I love that. I have a team that have been with me for many, many years, 25 years, 20 years, 15 years. They become my friends, and I love that. And it's an easy place to go to work. And when something tragic happens to you, like when you're in Alaska and you lose an eye, which I hope it never happens, you know that you can step away and your veteran team members can run your business and bail you out, which is kind of what happened to me. So anyway, there you go. I imagine we're probably going to have questions. Sometimes I feel like I talk too fast. David, you didn't stop me very much.
I didn't need to. There actually was not a lot of questions. There is one question, and then I had a couple comments I wanted to make.
Yeah, and then maybe we can talk.
Yeah, Sharon wanted to know, does your employees wear name tags?
They do. They wear name tags.
Yeah.
I don't dress my team in scrubs. We've had to adopt that a little bit for COVID, but typically my team wears something that's not a scrub. It's like a professional type top that we treat just like scrubs. We professionally clean them. They don't wear in the office or anything, but I don't have them wear scrubs. You can do that. I'm not saying you can't do that, but we try and work really hard on appearance, kind of like other businesses do. And it does include a name tag. And like I said, they've kind of gone into one of our meetings and created the way that they think they should look every day to represent our business, because we're in the public eye all the time. And we go back and review that once in a while, the things that they talked about. And once again, this great habits list is fluid. We constantly decide that something else isn't a good idea anymore, and we add something or we tweak it. So it should never be seen as something that's static. It's definitely fluid.
Yeah, good.
There was a question earlier regarding the number of patients that you see a day
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there's some variability to that. And
Yeah,
also,
there is.
and then hygienists.
Okay. A number of hygienists or how many patients they see a day?
Yes.
Yeah. So my day varies. I'll see one patient, or I'll see 8 patients. Or if it's the day like we all have, I'll see 10 patients. But we do use a practice template where we have gone out in advance as a team in one of these board meetings and decided what our ideal day would look like. And we've created a patient flow on how many hygiene patients that would be, how many spots in the schedule do we reserve for perio treatment, how many, what does a doctor's day look like, and what would a day look like when we went home rested and feeling like we delivered on our standard of care. And we designed a template like that. And so on some days we actually allow for me to see more patients, but on other days we save for a big case, 1 patient a day or 2 patients a day. And Dr. Harris will do kind of the exact same thing. It's a template where we've created it not based on what we could do when we have our foot on the gas full steam, but what we do if it's an ideal day. But I have to also revert back to the idea, like I said before, we always start our day like a football play, like we want it to go, but we have to have the ability to adapt to that should things go sideways, like it's like happens, a cancellation, someone shows up on the wrong day, there's an emergency, something turns into a root canal. But we talk about how we're going to make those things work instead of fumbling around and making it having it ruin the entire day. So hygienists see, on average, probably 6 patients a day. They're going to see, in an ideal template, they're going to see 4 patients that are hour appointments and 2 patients that are 2-hour appointments, whether it's a new patient or a comprehensive exam, or whether it's a perio type appointment. So that's kind of the way we've templated it. So, and every hygienist, if you go out in the future and find an empty day in Dentrix with no patients, we have designed using a template and their perfect day scheduling. We have designed that in a way that we want our day to look like so that we don't get burned out.
Yeah. Chris, Caroline asked about the periodontal product that you base your perio on. And, I know No More Hygiene with Tommy Neighbor stuff is a little different.
It is.
Typical hygiene. Why don't you just very briefly talk about that?
Oh, I probably could not do it justice, but Tommy, I know you're listening, so I hope I don't mess this up. But Tommy's philosophy of periodontal care, and now I have completely bought into what he does and copied his genius instead of creating my own mediocrity. It basically acknowledges the fact that the disease process and the periodontal disease process starts early when we should be addressing it early. When, like other physicians do, they address the disease process as early as they can so it never progresses to a full-on systemic infection that it affects overall health. Tommy's way of thinking is, why is dentistry involved in not treating an infection like periodontal disease or like gingivitis, like the physicians do, where we address the symptoms and the causes very early. And let's acknowledge the fact that some forms of periodontal disease are very advanced, and on the microbe level, they're very sophisticated and severe. And for some reason, as dentists, we have gotten accustomed to having this kind of infection just 2 inches from our brain, or the fact that we're constantly swallowing this infection and allowing it into our bloodstream. So we probably all in 2020 have kind of acknowledged that severity of the disease, and I know that the medical community is adopting that also. But Tommy's philosophy is involving patients in their care and establishing a system where we just don't treat the perio in our office, but we involve them in treating it at home, so we actually get them well and get them healthy. So I don't have time to go through all the products, but it does use some traditional products: Cavitrons, chlorhexidine, Therasol, tooth and gum tonic, all those things that we know about. But it's packaged in a way, and it's a system that when you go to Tommy's course and you just learn about it, you just get to copy everything that he does. And one of the things that I've done with David and the way that he's taught me to create a smile is I decided not to learn something and then take pieces of it back to my practice. I decided to copy everything, every product, every step, everything that they do, so that I know I'm not gonna mess it up, because I'm not smart enough really to create my own system. So I hope that answered the question. Using a water pick, certainly removing the etiology of the infection, but doing it in a way that actually is effective. And this whole process that Tommy taught me has excited my entire team about perio, so that it's become not a hygiene program, but a practice philosophy that even my front desk, or my desk, not my front desk, but my business team completely buys into.
Good. You know, a couple of things you said I think are really important that, you know, we do in our practice as well. That 5 minutes at the beginning of the visit, you know, I like that, because, you know, once I start doing my dentistry, I get so focused that, you know, I'm not talking all the way through the appointment. But right now, I think even more so, that 5 minutes, for two reasons in my office. One is, you know, what their reality of this COVID is, right? I mean, some say, you know, mask is a joke, and some of them, you know, they're worried about the fact we have carpet in our reception area.
Yeah.
And so I like to get a feel for that. Sometimes when I'm talking complex treatment plans, if the patient isn't as sensitive to this mask, I'd prefer not to have my mask on. As I talk about that. Now I may go back 4 or 5 feet versus being right in their face, but I think that's really important. The other thing is this whole politics thing. You know, we have TVs in our operatories, and, you know, getting a sense a little bit about, you know, what side of the aisle they're on. You know, we know whether there should be CNN or Fox on, or things we should or shouldn't say. And, you know, it's been really critical in the last, 8 months for that. The other thing too is you mentioned the chapstick and giving chapstick. So, you know, we give chapstick, you know, with our logo, and patients, you know, it's almost like the patients get excited when they get the hygiene visit and they get a new toothbrush. It's like now they come in and it's like, I came back because I want my chapstick, because they like it. And, you know, it's obviously a marketing tool. But now what we do, again, COVID has kind of changed this for us a little bit. We used to have it in kind of a candy jar in the front, you know, they could grab one. You know, we use a rubber dam, we use the Optigate, and really the patient needs to have some sort of lubricant on their lips. And what we did in the past, we'd have a jar of a lip balm, and kind of a nice tasting smelling lip balm. And my dental assistant would dip a cotton applicator and rub it on their lips. And then we realized, you know, that might be a weird deal for some of these patients during this COVID time. So what we're doing now is my dental assistant will say, I want to give you some lip balm. They'll get one of our little chapsticks, our lip balm. It's sealed, and they'll say, this is brand new, Chris. They'll break the seal, they'll rub on their lips, and the patient gets to take that with them. And, you know, things like that, again, it's about patient and customer service. It's also, you know, about, you know, a time where people are a little more concerned about where is this stuff going, you know, and I think you made some excellent points as always.
Yeah, and this goes back to the same thing. I mean, once you establish a system like that, I love knowing when I walk around the office that everyone in my office is doing it the exact same way. But if that's what we've chosen to do, break the seal, apply the chapstick, and everyone has so many good ideas. I love involving my office team in contributing to what we do. And I found out that I don't have to reach very far, sometimes not even past my own team, to find some of these amazing ideas. If you're working with the right people, they have so much to offer. And if you involve your team in the growth of your practice, they want to stay. And it is about money to them. When we talked about that, you want to reward them well to work there, but it's only a part of why they come to work every day. They come to work every day because they want to feel like they're a part of something, and that their opinion and their contribution actually matters. So kind of, I guess, why I've gotten super passionate about involving them in the way that I do in that kind of that 20% of the time that I spend on my business.
Good. Well, I've got a few more minutes. Jeremy, if you're still there, if we could maybe post some information on a link for some of this information. Also, I want to talk a little bit about our speaker in December. I'm not cutting you off, Chris. If anyone wants to
I'm good.
ask a question, I know it's getting late on the East Coast. So yeah. So Jared, if you could maybe take the screen, would be awesome.
Yep. There you go.
So most of you have heard of Arun Garg. He's probably the most prolific speaker and educator on implants. He's also the original developer of PRP and PRF. And I've actually done some courses at his institute in Dominican Republic. Wealth of knowledge. I know a lot of our listeners have been to his course or seen him speak. And so he's going to be with us December 17th. He's going to talk about PRP and how to use it in dentistry. It should be really fascinating. And it's kind of interesting is, for those that were on the beginning, I told you I'm down in Mexico, and one of my best friends that live in the condo down here, he was a professional volleyball player, and he's having some bad knee problems. So he came back and he had some surgery with his knee. He goes, "You won't believe this. I got this PRP stuff, and they injected it, and there was no pain like when I had my other knee done." And I said, "Yeah, I kind of know the guy that developed that, and he's a dentist of all things." And so this guy's a wealth of knowledge. It's going to be a lot of fun. So be sure to put that on your calendar for December 17th. That'll be 8 p.m. East Coast time.
And I just posted it in the chat. So the link to register is there as you're getting ready to log out here, and we'll display the code here in just a second.
Hey, also, Jeremy, will you let them know, because I'm happy to share the documents that I said I would. Maybe have Stacy email me or something, and I will send her the documents, and then is there a way for you guys to share them?
There is, yep.
Okay.
In fact, all of those that participated this evening, you'll get an email tomorrow with instructions on how to claim your CE for tonight, some of the details of tonight, along with some of the documents and content that Dr. Chris Hammond's been so kind to share with you. So yeah, that will go out tomorrow with all those details.
Great.
Good.
Thanks for having